Hi, and welcome to Yeshiva Shem Aver. I'm Rabbi David Katz. We are ending the Torah, officially bringing 1 year's worth of look into the Ger Torah into a climax, VZos Beracha. It's a bit of a, Joe, this is for you, this is a bit of a furphy, because the current format with Yeshiva Shem Aver started in Mishpatim, if I remember correctly. So as we are officially ending the cycle now, we're gonna, I don't know how you want to say it, the theme of which we approach this, I guess, will continue until Mishpat, until Yisro, fittingly enough. But technically it's over, and we may change tune a little bit, starting on Saturday. Next Saturday, as we enter Bereshis. So, just for the record, on recordings, when you listen to the full year's worth, it should just be noted, VZos Beracha ends starting from Mishpatim. Thus, from Bereshis to Yisro to come will technically be the next cycle, but we're going to end that in Yisro. And when we get to Yisro Mishpatim, we'll figure out where we'll continue the cycle from there. So it's the end of one cycle, but we picked up in the middle. And again, the basic reason is we switched venues from the old locale, for those that remember, to the current format of Yeshiva Shem Aver. So just a technical background. And let's go. VZos Beracha Yeshiva Shem Aver. Questions, comments, or feedback I can be reached at Rabbi Katz at virtualyeshiva.com. The title for the article, Shabbat Shalom. It sounds pretty obvious since it's a Shabbos class, but there is method to the madness. The Torah actually, in my view, ends with a Shabbat Shalom message. To go into the Haftorah as usual, first things first, because of the holidays and the mishmash of Haftorahs and Parashas and the different Haftorahs that we read due to whether it's a holiday or not, I had the time to go over 3 Haftorahs, one for Shmini Atzeret, one for Simchas Torah, and one for Chol Moed Sukkos. They're all kind of relative. It really is Chol Moed Sukkos, but the article is for Shmini Atzeret, and in America it would be Simchas Torah, and I've forgotten actually what they read in abroad, because in Israel it's 1 day, in America it's 2 days. Or exactly how the whole system works. I've been in Israel long enough that when it's a 2-day holiday in America, I forget what they do. So that said, there's 3 Haftorahs that weigh in here, and here's the general synopsis. King Solomon finishes the temple. There's a lot of offerings. And what this reminds me of is, whether it's directly related, I don't know, but I'm taking the liberty to express it. Rabbi Nachman makes one thing perfectly clear. Once you crunch the Torah to, let's say, a product, an action, something that God wants you to do once you get through the Torah, Rabbi Nachman Zohar tradition states, the greatest honor to God you can do is to bring back Gerim. The reason why you bring back Gerim is for what he calls the rectification of the altar, the Mizbeach. Now, the most clear reason why I think it's literal, forget, want to get Kabbalistic and go into the upper worlds and, our spiritual source, but every ger, convert, non-convert, has one thing in common. You have an IOU when you become a ger. Technically, you convert your nefesh, the level of soul that you're most in touch with, and it becomes bound up into the Torah. It's level of literally, it's a conversion. You're converting, let's say, from the world's perspective, the Amalekite world. Not to call you an Amalekite, but the world we all live in is an Amalekite world. Our job is to turn the world into a Jewish Torah world. Meaning, it's not even Jewish at that point. It's the Torah universe. Where Shabbat is taking cause and not Saturday. Right? It's extreme opposites. It's either the Jewish world or the Amalekite world. The Jews then are essential Gerim, placed in the Amalekite world to say a message to humanity. This is not true. This is called God hiding his face. If you look a little deeper, you'll find God. The Torah is the message of God, and it is a Torah universe. The non-Jews, then, their task is generally to have gone through idolatry. It's just the way the world works. Come out of idolatry, say, okay, I get what's going on. I am rejecting idolatry. The Amalekite world is not for me. I understand God is God, and the Torah is the message of the universe. That's a conversion. I have rejected idolatry. I am a ger, whatever you want to call it. That is called coming back from far. That is what it is about, to honor God. Where this person takes it is his own life. It's his own choice. He takes it day by day with God. He might decide he's a Jew. He might decide he's a ger toshav. He might decide he's a ger tzedek. There's a gauntlet of options and opportunities for him. He won't know until every day he wakes up where he ends that day. Just like the Jew comes back to be about tshuva, you never really know where you're going to go until you get there. And you may never get there, meaning it may be a perpetual journey, which at that level, the Jew becomes the ger. If you settle it's a Jewish universe, you didn't do the job either. That you might as well make it an Amalekite universe. It has to be the ger toshav universe. That really is the most natural expression. The only Jewish universe, we know where that goes. The Amalekite universe, we know where that goes. The ger toshav is a conversion for everybody. Jew and non-Jew to convert into the ger toshav universe, where Shabbos takes the place of Saturday. Everything goes in suit. It is a conversion into that reality. Thus, the ger actually then has let's say, the more literal conversion, and he will bring the offering to the temple. He has an IOU, since the temple is not standing. The gerim bring their offerings, the ola. Since there's no temple, there's a backlog of offerings waiting to happen. When the temple comes, there will be a lot of sacrifices going on from the gerim. And I believe they get first precedent. They've had the longest status of IOU. A simple prayer, as instituted, let's say, in Jewish doctrine, you pray is akin to bringing an offering. That's actually chal. That works. It's not a little nice idea. The offering of the ger, praying may help. It's not a deficiency that you've not brought the offering. It's actually a bonus. It's what keeps the story going and brings the temple into our reality. So it's not for naught. But when it comes, the offering must happen. And Solomon's building the temple, to me, with all of the offerings, seems like finally an opportunity, even if it's only allegorical, as a hint to the end of days, where there will be tons of sacrifices. Thus, you have the gerim coming back to Torah is in many ways a tremendous repair to the altar. Now we have Gog v'Magog, the Haftorah for Sukkot. What I've learned from Ger Torah, King David and Tehillim vis-a-vis Ger Torah. This is a very simple thing. To understand the end of days literature. The Ger's message is how to view the allegory of the Torah in a productive fashion. So, for example, the mountain splits with an earthquake. And we rely on the story of Shimshon for context in these matters, as Shimshon is the paradigm court system of Noahides expressed in allegory, i.e. bringing down the temples and all of that. So King David explains that the mountain that splits from an earthquake is symbolic of religion, false religion coming down. The sea is bubbling and churning. That is the false Torah. So forth and so on. That everything in the prophet's literature really has its allegorical truth and depth. Thus, you have the Gog and Magog by the end of the Torah, where we finish the Torah, we should have the vessels to understand the allegory. And finally, Joshua leads us over the Jordan, and again, you have the most applicable allegory in law. If you look, you'll see the great river, and you'll think Euphrates. And we're going to conquer Iraq. And the Jews are going to conquer the world. And we're going to go all over and make falafel in every street corner. That's not true. That's what happens when you learn it wrong. You're going to say we're going to conquer the Euphrates, and then you're going to get the map on Google Images where the Jews conquer everything. No. The allegory must be understood. The great river, and there's many examples of this, of the river growing. That's the Jordan. The Jordan is the basis of the border down through the Negev up to Mount Carmel, i.e. the Mediterranean, over to the Sea of Galilee, down the Jordan, and Jerusalem in the middle. The essential land of Israel must be conquered first. And understanding the borders requires mastery of allegory into the practical. Joshua then says, if you do this, then the tribes that are Transjordan will be given that territory, but not until you conquer within the water. Red Sea, Jordan, Kinneret, Mediterranean, and connecting the Carmel to the Negev. Haftorahs. Into the Zohar. There was no Zohar, as I stated, but I did get into Bereshis because it's massive. So just to share some gleamings from Bereshis, Noah sinned. And we all know this whole thing about is he greater than Abraham in the sin. The Zohar gives context. Noah doesn't pray for the generation because he wants them to die. They're the power of the Erev Rav. And the Erev Rav, he realizes is the ability to generate a Amalek. So Noah says, let the Amalekites die. And the answer is no. He had to pray for them. Why? Because Gerim come from Erev Rav too. Not to say that the Gerim are Erev Rav. It's that within this potential of Erev Rav, when you rectify the problem, you're releasing Gerim to come out. What the Erev Rav are, it's a non-developed entity. Let's call it the non-Jew in flux. He may become a ger, and he rectifies the Torah, rectifies Israel, rectifies himself, and he helps bring down the power of the Erev Rav that becomes a problem. He himself is not a problem. But, and he comes from, let's say, that Amalekite idolatrous world. Now, if that meant everybody in that world was of it, essentially, then you would be flawed and not allowed into Torah domain, which we know is not true. The power, in Kabbalah, I believe it's called Klippas Noga. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is the gematria, or das rather, das of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is the gematria Erev Rav. And we know that the tree of knowledge would have been permitted to have been consumed on the Shabbos itself. So there's a rectification to it. The gerim are those that come rectified out of this unripe entity. Then within the entity, if you assume kedusha or holiness beyond being ripe, meaning you take it while it's unripe, you reiterate eating the fruit, then that is Erev Rav. That is, let's say, a conversion to Judaism for the sake of not for its own right, but for the seizure of holiness. No ger can be called Erev Rav. That's the whole point. By becoming a ger, you are saying, I have rejected Erev Rav. You've done your part to defeat it. You have conquered it. You are out of it. You are in a kosher realm of holiness. To convert to Judaism the right way is the same thing. Whether you choose to do it as a ger or a convert is your own volition. Then to seize holiness illegally, trespassingly, I'm going to keep Shabbos to show you how good, that is the Erev Rav. It's arrogant. Whereas the ger and the convert are not arrogant. Thus, then you have a molek. The level is to say, not only am I involved in the idolatrous world, I want to basically reject gerim, the right of their existence, and I'm going to do it to the detriment of this Jewish practice. Meaning, I'm not even doing it for seizure of holiness. I want to kill the possibility of there being holiness, and by means of that, I am stopping all gerim. Noah says, what a horrible thing. The Amalekite is a horrible thing. And the Erev Rav is a horrible thing. He doesn't realize that you can get gerim out of this. So, the Erev Rav can be developed the right way into gerim, there's no problem. Or it can go really bad, and you have the Amalekite problem. On top of the already, problematic Erev Rav situation. Noah does not pray for their salvation, and he's punished for that. Why? Because gerim are it. Yes, gerim are harsh on Israel like thorns, because dealing with it, you may be involved with Amalek and Erev Rav. Meaning he who is looking for the ger may find turbulent waters. That does not mean you write off the ger. And this has been a theme in Jewish history since day one. Can it just be a Jewish world? Forget about the ger. Too hard. Not my business. I don't want to be involved. Let's kill Amalek, get rid of him, make it a Jewish universe. Noah tried it. He tried to be more Jewish than anybody before there was an Abraham, and it failed. Hence they say Noah and Abraham's generation wouldn't have amounted to anything. Because he would have tried to have been Jewish without gerim. On that side, it's correct. On the side that he would have been just as righteous, he actually would have been able to make gerim. What would he have done? We don't know. Would he have tried to make gerim or not? His actions said he wanted to not allow for gerim. And the reason why there was an Abraham was not because of the Noah, but Shem, Melchizedek, finds Abraham, and then you have the program rectified, so it's a moot point. The nastiest level of Erev Rav are those that steal. And who is the best person to steal from? You got it, the ger. The ger is the most stolen from entity of people that ever lived, both by Amalekites and by Erev Rav. A lot of the things we have in the world come from the original ancient gerim. And the tragedy is that today's gerim don't know. The Jew in the Torah then is privy to that knowledge for the continuous son after son existence, whereas the ger has the merit of every generation popping up as if he was freshly born. Thus, the Jew, his job is to make gerim, bring them back. When the ger get together, they see the extent of what's going on, and it creates a more powerful entity of holiness of the entire congregation of Yaakov that consists of Jews and gerim. Eventually, you bring back all these things, you eradicate stealing, which is what brought the flood, kills the Erev Rav, brings out the Gerim, destroys Amalek, brings the world into Ger Toshav, and you repair the world, essentially. This is how you do it from mercy. It's not about taking guns and killing them. As the Zohar actually says, there are 5 types of Erev Rav. You only deal with the top of the heap, and those ones, how do you repair their breach and thievery? By establishing Noahide law, particularly in stealing. Then it dismantles the power and potential of the Erev Rav to steal from Gerim, and you repair the world. It's a mouthful. I'm aware of that. Fascinating. Listen to it again, and listen to it. It's condensed, but it's interesting. Now into the article proper. I'm reading the Parsha, and I'm saying this is not going to be easy. VZos Beracha is just blessings, which are great. But to find, the ger and the theme and the whole Torah, it's nearly impossible. We all want there to be meaning in the blessing of Reuven, in Yehuda, in Gad, in Asher, right? I'm sure we all can relate. We read VZos Beracha and we say, man, there's some deep stuff here. Jacob and Bereshis got them together and said, this is what befalls you in the end of days. We say, man, the secrets of Mashiach are in here. But it's very hard to get into, God and Asher and Reuven. And Reuven, you let you live and not die and say, wow, I understand the depth of this. It's very hard. Perhaps if you spend a lot of time on it, but we have to move on. Bereshis is here next week. There's no Zohar on it. It takes a lot of meditation. And it's not our biggest priority. I think it was why we don't do it. It's certainly meritorious. It will be a great endeavor. And I've received emails from people bringing really interesting views of these blessings. But for some reason, the mind says to you, it's not a priority to meditate on this. Why? I don't know. I just don't feel the need to meditate on it. I think it's too vast. Where would you start? So then you go through the Parsha, and you come to the very last verse. For every strong hand and awesome fear. And that is, as Rashi explains, are the miracles of the Exodus in the desert. That which you did, Moses, says Rashi in context, that which you did, meaning the thing that you really did the best, was for the eyes of all of Israel. And that is the essential Torah, the essential Moses, the essential Messiah. And we can't understand this, or you don't even know there is to understand it. Read Rashi. He says, what is this word that? Listen to this word that. Can anybody, and type 1 or 2 based on yes or no, can you think of more than one definition in context to use the word that? Go ahead and think about it and respond. It sounds like a ridiculous word. But the nature of the oral Torah is predicated around these words like that. It's the level of Torah where God speaks. It's a written word that is only written to contain the divine speech of God. So I'll tell you 2 examples of the word that. It's interesting that we all said this. Everybody hear that? It's interesting that we all said this. Or I can say, Ross, that what you said, that was great. Do you hear the difference? Does everybody hear the difference between the 2 words that? Give me a 1 or 2. When you understand the sense that this is, if you've ever heard me say, Joe, recording ended, please record again. If you've ever heard me use the expression, by the way, Joe, it looks like you're not allowed to type if you've hit the record, so don't type. Or no, yeah, don't type. Or no, you didn't. Okay, anyways, noted. If you've ever heard me use the expression soft mind, right? Understanding or bina comes with the soft mind. Understanding the word that is a soft mind. To be able to say that there's context that means something in the word that. And then the oral Torah is filled with these soft-minded things. It's not, there's two kinds of communication. There's yad chazaka, like the verse says, the strong side, din, judgment, or the awesome fear, when you really connect to somebody and you say, yeah, I get you. That's the soft mind. The word that, Rashi says, that which you did, Moses, which you broke the 10 commandments, that was your defining moment. Yesher koyach. Way to go. So there's the concept of the song of the Mashiach. We have the song of Israel. We have the song of Hazinu. We have Shir Hashirim. Then Moses will sing again, it says. David gives his song in the Haftorah, which, mind you, from the last time I did it, went over it, and it was nothing short of amazing. Side point. It's like a secret Tehillim, or missing Tehillim, inside David's last prophetic words in Samuel 2. And in that psalm, David says, Hashem, you drew me out of the water. And the Hebrew is the same usage of when Moses is drawn out of the water, to which he's called Moses. And this is the song of David. So combine a little bit of David, a little bit of Moses, you have the Mashiach. That moment, like when Joseph says, Ani Yosef, the revelation of Mashiach, of Yosef. There's a time when Mashiach is revealed. And it's in the Torah of Moshe when he breaks the commandments, the tablets. At that time, it was so deep, so the heart of Moses. He actually gave us the revelation of Mashiach ben David. Breaks the luchos, and he's praised with it. And he forgets that praiseworthy trait by hitting the two rocks. If he realizes that too is the will of God. He couldn't see his own revelation there. That's, let's say, the side of the Ger in the world of Bria. But here Moses in Atzilus as the Jew, which the story will be completed by David. The final redemption. But when he breaks the commandments, he throws it down. That is Moses, the Mashiach, giving us that message. That what Moses did for the eyes of all of Israel, which the Midrash says, the eyes are the prophets. So when the prophets speak allegorically of the end of days, they are seeing shards of Moses' broken commandments. And the breaking through, we all now are a product of the deliverance of the second tablets. What Moses is saying is, yes, you have the second tablets, you always will be. But there's a level of breakage that must happen within them. The Torah doesn't change. You don't throw away the Torah because you will have learned it wrong, and you will have learned it wrong. The Ger is a convert, we all know that. There's no Ger Tzedek that's a non-Jew, we all know that. And that never changes. You can't, one day you're going to find a different solution. You don't throw it all away. There is, the schnitzelkeit of learning Torah. That knowledge that you learn the wrong way it will come in handy, and eventually it will all shatter and break. But that doesn't lose its integrity. It's a buildup. Yes, the ger is a convert, but he's also a non-Jew on location where appropriate. But if you lose the sensitivity of is the ger even a convert, well, then you're back to tohu vavohu. So keep the 10 Commandments second tablets in you, but be ready and willing and able on cue to break when appropriate, to shatter the status quo. That's what Moses is telling you. Be willing to bring the Eish dot. The dot loosely means religion. Let's say it's the true Torah inherent religion. Eish dot, the religion of fire. The fiery dot that's within the tablets. That must come out. But just like a candle, without wax, you lose the wick, you lose the flame. You must have wax. Eternal wax. That's the second tablets. And is this the reiteration of the Torah? Where does Moses die? We're back in Moab, just like we had Pinchas at the end of Bamidbar, just like we were out encamped by Moab. We went through Devarim. We realized again we were in Moab. We forgot for a while. But in case you forgot, really, here Moses is dying. We never left Moab. The Torah ends in Moab. And what's the proverbial understanding? You will get the resurrected storyline in Moab. Call it the Ruth program, which gives us the David program, the Solomon program, the Mashiach program. It was all waiting for you in Moab. You can say you left the desert to go into Moab, and you're essentially not capturing the lands and borders of Israel. You will have gone through Gog and Magog, and you will get that temple altar once you finally leave Moab with the sparks of Mashiach. And by learning the Parsha this way, with the allegories and everything, you'll see it is the reiteration of Torah. The book of Genesis is in here if you look carefully. And the Exodus in the desert we found is in here. There you have Shemos, there you have Bamidbar. The heart of the Torah is the ger, which is embedded in the blessings. We have Vayikra and Genesis, with the forefathers are all Moses picking up the slack from Jacob, and the tribes are in there. In Devarim, all comes to a head. That which you did was your greatest act. The word that, Asher. Rearrange the letters, it spells Rosh, as in the head of all the nations is Amalek. Thus, that is the antithesis of the false head. And the Sinai happens on Shabbos. The time of Moses smashing the tablets, go back a little bit. Where does it all begin? On Sinai. After the 40 days, he breaks the tablets, then boom, boom, boom. The end of creation and the Mashiach is what we're looking for. When the Torah says on the sixth day, Yom HaShishi, there's an additional letter Hey, which they say it's the sixth day, as in Shavuos, the time of giving the Torah. And as we're going to learn very soon, those letter Heys that say the, those are actually the voice of God. I'll explain later. Keep it in mind. Thus we have that Shavuos is what it was all about. That was when we heard, I am Hashem your God, you should have no other gods, in the Parsha of Jethro. The Jews are going to be commanded in Shabbos, on that Shabbos. It was Shabbos. Yet in the Ten Commandments, the Gerim are commanded in Shabbos under the pretext of Ger Tzedek. And should you say it's a Jewish command, only of your brethren, why is the Torah Parsha named Jethro? As a mere hint to the depth of the challenge, who is this Ger Tzedek? Break the luchos and find the voice of God. You'll find out it's very simple, yet very complex, yet very simple. We will get into this in briefly. I'm introducing it now. Asher comes from the word ashrei, praiseworthy. The Torah ends with Moses a little bit before the same Ashrechem. You all are praiseworthy who stand here today. By that time, mind you, it is Jews and Gerim. There are Gerim on site. The full nation is ready. David then, as the other half of the Messiah program, begins the Tehillim with Ashrei, praiseworthy. Where the end letters, I always say this, I forget if it's the end or beginning letters, begin also spelling the first four words, be spelled out. You can look the word Ashrei again. It's about praiseworthy. Our existence is the praiseworthiness of God. That we should be benefit in our lives to the praiseworthy attributes of God. So we already mentioned it's not so easy to learn the blessings. And looking for meaning and depth. So you know what you can call the Parsha at the end of the day, which the Midrash basically goes into this. This is the life and death of Moses. When you learn the Midrash, it talks all about Moses' life. And now, you know that level of Asher, of Moses' bones calling out. This is the essential Moses. This is his life. Forget about this and that. This is Torah Moshe. And the essence, when it comes down to the last line, and when we finish Parashas Chukas, when we first got to Moav, it came down to the last line. And we learned about Moses' idea of the kingdom of God, and that came down to the last line of the Midrash. The Torah comes down to the last line. That which Moses did was great in the eyes of Israel for the prophets of all time. The essential Torah is in the last bit. And you know it always ends that way. The last place I looked is the cliche, right? This is essential Moses. Life, death, the Torah of. And Sinai happens on Shabbos. Pinchas gets the covenant of peace. The Torah's two most messianic figures. Figure David hasn't come yet. David is actually a combination, the VZos says, of Jethro and Pinchas. The level of nefesh of Adam on a particular level. So David is in the Torah on a very kind of fragmented scale. So the most essential product we have is Jethro, Pinchas, and Moses. Abel and Cain and reincarnate in Jethro and Moses. Pinchas, he who's a bit of everything. He gets the covenant of peace. Moses got the revelation on Shabbat. And you put it together and you say Shabbat Shalom. The revelation of the Messiah, when the Messiah is in full, i.e. the Gerim and Jews have come together, and you want to know where is that light to the nations? Meaning, where can the Jew give his light? Where does the Jew see the Ger receiving the light? Where is the union without schism? Torah says it's not good to be alone. On Shabbos, you're never alone. The light of Mashiach shines on Shabbat. Take the word Asher, take it one letter up, each letter spells Shabbat. When the Ger keeps the Shabbat, the Jew understands the Ger keeps Shabbat, you will have shattered those vessels. You are back at Sinai. When you're at Sinai, every Ger in the world can say, I accept the law as given to Moses on Sinai. That was Shabbat. How do you get back to Moses at Sinai? Through Shabbat. How do you be a light to the nations? By Shabbat. Thus, this whole revelation is the level of what's called Nishmat Moshe, the soul of Moses. Moses was a man in a body for the entire 120 years, to the point where the Torah says, what is man but just flesh of 120 years? But at that one moment, just like Solomon in building the temple had a messianic moment of mentality, Moses breaking the tablets, that was when God says, that what you did, that was the moment. Similarly, by Solomon, that what you did by building the temple was the moment. And we look at the word Yisrael, for the eyes of Israel. Or it says, Kol Yisrael even, the last two words. Put them together, it spells Keli Sar Kale. Vessels of song that was sung about God. What is the song of Mashiach? Bearing your soul. Revealing your I Am Yosef program. Revealing your kishkes, your guts. This is what I feel about God. Shabbos is the time when you have the blessing to let go, bare your soul, and talk about God, even if it's talking to God. In learning, praying, friends, with Shabbos experience around the Shabbos table is the best time. To partake of the table of Abraham, to bring praises of praiseworthy, the God of Abraham, which is the sign of all the noblemen of the world, i.e., the Ger Tzedek program. So now we have context, all these words, the nobleman, Ger Tzedek, God of Abraham. It's all the same thing. It's the message is sit down at a Shabbos table on Friday night and talk about God. Bring something to the table of Abraham. He who was the first of the Ger Tzedek. Talk about the God of Abraham. Kel Elyon. Partake of bread and wine, bringing back Gerim, evoking memories of Malki Tzedek. Bearing your soul, talking to God, is the song of Mashiach. We see how it begins to resonate. And Shabbos is the time of that song. Even getting to Shabbos means you sang the song. Yisrael means Yisar Kel. You will have sang the song. That is the song of the Messiah. That is the song that Moshe Mashiach sang by breaking the tablets. Inside those broken shards, was that what you did? That was great. It took place at the tail end of Shabbos. Getting the Ger to Shabbos and finding him on Shabbos is the time the song will have been sung. But there's an enemy. We talked about Amalek, we talked about Erev Rav, and then there's the Sar of the Erev Rav, the minister of the Erev Rav, the spiritual component that wherever you are on your path and you threaten to get into that Shabbos, boom, there he is. You're not a Ger Tzedek, you're not a convert. Notice the word minister, sar, is the same word for sang. So for as much as you wish you will have sang, there is a minister, a sar, against you. Take of Abraham and Sarah, Sarah, her song, by making the Gerim. That is really the end of the Erev Rav. Getting to that Shabbat. They stole it away, get it back. By learning the true Noahide doctrine. And it comes from no better than Jethro. Jethro knows the Erev Rav from Egypt. He says, I know these guys. I know these guys well. And they will cause problems. And Moses is a Meshugana for bringing them out. God's right. Why is he bringing them out? So since he's bringing them out, they will start up. I'm going to sit back and see how this goes. The golden calf comes. Jethro hears. Boom, I got it. Oh, man. They pulled that. Jethro comes to Sinai after the golden calf. Read the verses literally. He says, now I knew that God is great. I knew that, but now I know because the wisdom foretold what was going to happen. They antagonized you. He is in reference there to the heir of Rav, Jethro. Thus, by Jethro holding back, holding the energy, letting the heir of Rav work out their own death wish. Because when they make the golden calf, they are going to die. Their time limit is within the boundary of 6,000 years. They will not see the next world. They make the golden calf. Moses breaks the tablets. And by that, it allowed Moses to shine. Who was the greatest presence to the Torah? The biggest friend to the Torah's conception, delivery, and messianic deliverance? Jethro the Ger Tzedek, who the commandment of Shabbos for the Noahide in his Parsha. The father-in-law of Moses, the grandfather of Pinchas, who brought Moses his greatest moment of breaking the commandments and urging Pinchas in inspiration of the Ger to grab that spear and puncture Zimri and Cosby. Jethro is that fiery Torah law. The Ten Commandments take place in Jethro. Even though he wasn't there, the message is he's here. The Ger is in the Ten Commandments. 10 Commandments are buried for a long time. The heretics want it. Why? Because the Ger keeps his Shabbat in those 10 Commandments. The Gercha Shebersharecha. And the Ger in your gate, he keeps Shabbos. Go to Yevamos 48b. That's the Ger Tzedek. It's a convert. It's a convert. But wait a second. 10 commandments here. 7 of the Noahide laws are basically in those 10. And the other 3, I am Hashem your God, honor your parents, keep Shabbos, sounds like Mara. The briefing before Sinai. And there you have, to keep the Shabbat, look at it like a ger. Break the luchas. The Jew says, well, I'm supposed to keep Shabbos, and a convert, he keeps Shabbos too. But if you read the verse, the part no one reads, the maidservant has to keep Shabbos like you, so that he can rest. So you don't break the law, because what, you want your maidservant to break the law? Your son and daughter rest. What, you want them to not rest, so your maidservant can make them cannot rest over them? Don't bother your cow, because then the maidservant will feel he has to clean up. And he has to rest Shabbos like you. And the ger, who either comes from a great distance, he's called a ger tzedek. Why is he coming to you? Because he knows what it is to keep Shabbos even over a great distance. Or, if the ger's not going to keep Shabbos in my house, my kids are going to see what it is to break Shabbos, harsh on Israel like thorns or gerim. How do you repair this? Don't call him a ger. Call him a ger tzedek. Why? Because he'll keep Shabbos. He's commanded to, just like you. Why? It's called derech eretz. How do you want me to keep it if I don't know how to keep it? So we say, you're going to keep it. If you're that keen on being at this Shabbos table, you don't live right next door necessarily, either came from a great distance, or you are not a ger toshav by nature. I mean, my fear is not that you should do work for me, the Jew, which is illegal, but that I need you keeping Shabbos to keep the sanctity of this Shabbos, and you're here because you belong here. Now you have your derech eretz. Go home and keep it. Bring to your table of Abraham, worship the God of Abraham, come back, and you'll know what to do. And there is no harsh like thorns. The ger tzedek keeps the Shabbat part of the 10 Commandments. Don't focus on the ger. Don't focus on the Jew. It's about the maidservant who has to rest like you. And if he's going to rest, he is not a ger, he's not your kid, he's not you. He is a maidservant. And we need him to rest. That means me, Jew, I have to rest. My kids, they have to rest. And the ger, he has to rest. The ger tzedek keeps the Shabbat. 10 Commandments become the doctrine of the ger as well. The whole Torah is bound up in those 10 Commandments. Let alone the fact, I am Hashem your God. Now you have the whole Torah by being the ger. Now you have the 7 commandments. You have the option for Shabbos, honoring your parents. You have the whole Torah in Anochi. The third opinion of Avodah Zarah 64b, he may keep the entire Torah. That is the power of the second tablets coming in through the fiery law within. Be prepared to break the status quo. Yes, there's a Ger Tzedek that is not a convert. Boker Tov. Then you get into how is that possible? And you say, well, where the Torah mentions the Shabbos by the Ger Toshav, it says Hager, the hay before the word Ger. In the commentaries, the Sifra says, well, that means it can be either Ger Toshav or Ger Tzedek. And we know it's only a Ger Toshav because the 10 Commandments is the Ger Tzedek faction. And you say, but is the 10 Commandments here Jewish or non-Jewish? Achicha, your brother. By nature, since we focus on the maidservant, it has a remnant of not Jewish. So can you say it's only the convert? No. You have to say it is Jewish and it's not Jewish. So we say Ger Tzedek Lav Dafka, meaning not only is it the Ger Tzedek convert, he is a Ger Tzedek who is actually also a Ger Toshav, but not to the exclusion of the convert. The reason why people don't get the Ger Tzedek is there are about 3 sets of dualities. How many kinds of Ger Toshav? Is it the Ger Tzedek and the Ger Toshav is one? Is it the Ger Tzedek as his own entity? Is it the Ger Tzedek and the convert as one? Or is it only the convert? And what the commentary I found on Shabbat, mind you, by weighing out the factors of every verse, is it Achicha? Is it your brother? Is it Jewish? Are there the letters before the word Ger? Meaning, do we take into account 2 types here? Did he come from far? Does it say V'gercha, which is only Ger Tzedek, which means now we entertain it vis-a-vis the brotherhood? The Torah becomes braille. It becomes a code. You can hit with pinpoint precision every ger in the Torah simply by reading it, just like the vowel points. It's called the voice of God in Torah. The white parchment around the black ink. And one must assume every area of Torah has its universe. We have found the Ger universe. There's a Sota universe, a Nazarite universe, a Reuven universe, a Yehuda universe, a Yaakov universe. There's a U universe. There's a David Katz universe. There's a Ross universe, a Joe universe. Everyone is in the Torah. Vilna Gaon 101. Everyone's name is in the Torah. Your world is in the Torah. Talk about breaking those tablets. Thus they must contain whole, for the knowledge to keep form. But when you understand the fire within, endless universes erupt. So when Moses breaks the tablets, that what you did? That was great. You allowed the Ger to come back. You ended the era of Rav at that moment. Pinchas got the covenant of peace. Moses finds Shabbat. Put it together, you get Shabbat Shalom. The Ger Tzedek Jethro program, 10 Commandments. Abraham kept Shabbos as the Ger Tzedek, the first Ger Tzedek from Shem, commanded in circumcision, which ideally Ger Tzedek would be. From the command, Abraham learns command of the commandments to the point where his son is commanded. And his son is commanded. The Ger now has his choice. Does he become an Abraham? Does he become a Shem? Does he become a Noah? Each one has its place. There are strong points. There are negative points. The trek back from the great distance into the realm of holiness will repair the altar. You will get to that temple. You will find your universe. You will find your place. There is no greater honor of God. The fiery law, the Eish Dot that Moses brought out, Just like Hager. Don't read Ger. Don't quote loosely. Look it up. What does the Torah say? Weigh out the verse. 50% Jewish, 50% Ger. You'll get the right answer every time. You'll understand what it means, that which Moses did in the eyes of Israel. Learn it correctly. We get this from the Torah of Moses, which comes in the last verse. Realizing that underneath letters and dots and lines and broken vavs, you'll become sensitive to hearing the voice of God, which is the essential Torah, which brings Noahide law to the forefront, which repairs the entire law, ends all evil opposition. The point is to honor God in the end of Torah. You must get to Shabbat. You must find Shalom. You must be on the level to understand what is Shabbat Shalom. Is it Shabbat and Shalom? Shabbat or Shalom? Shabbat Shalom. Is it the Ger and Toshav? Ger or Toshav? Ger Toshav? Ger Tzedek. Understanding the difference in text and meaning when people talk gives you that awesome fear and erases the Yad Chazaka. Finding the merciful answer to life. The true nature, Hashem Hu Elokim. Everything always comes down to peace. There's no greater Shalom than Shabbat. There's no greater expression of the broken tablets on the highest expression. The greatest thing that Moses did was he gave us the true Parashas Jethro, created in tandem with Jethro himself. And we can crunch it all down. Make Garum is the essence of honoring God. When you honor God, says Isaiah, you'll come to delight upon God. And there's no greater domain than that. Than when the Jews and Garum are together on Shabbat. Whether in their own universes, together, whatever it is, they both have the seventh day to proclaim God created the world. Rashi goes on to say, to not do this is to go back to idolatry, even for the Ger Toshav. The Ger Tzedek is urged to, it's his Derech Eretz. But in the end, it's called worshiping under the same God as Abraham. When we start to bring in Shabbat the correct way, under the jurisdiction of God's will, finding true Shabbat Shalom, spreading the light to the nations of Shabbat Shalom, we will all enter the seventh day when, behold, it was very good. The universal Shabbat, may Mashiach Tzidkenu come soon in our days. We've ended the Torah. We seek Moshe Mashiach, David Mashiach ben David, the revelation akin to Ani Yosef, the revelation that comes pouring out of Mashiach, with the revelation of Mashiach soon in our days. Amen.